Welcome back to News Talk 980 CJME's Talk to the Experts. Joining us on the line, Luca Catrani from the Jaymor Group out of the U.S. Luca, thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
I guess to begin with, tell us a bit about the Jaymor Group.
Well, the Jaymor Group is really an integrated group of real estate holding companies. We do a variety of things. Primarily, we're an investment issuer in the private equity, private investment market. We focus a lot on U.S.-based assets, primarily in the multifamily, so the apartment market in the United States, with a focus on the Sun Belt, mostly towards the southeast part of the Sun Belt. So that area kind of straddling everything south of Georgia, the Carolinas, Florida, and wrapping around to Texas.
So some of the projects you've got on the go are really quite wide-ranging.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, we've got a couple of different opportunities for investors today. Some of them are focusing more on an investment structure that gives investors a taxable benefit. You know, participating in some existing assets that we're doing some work to, and trying to provide investors with a return through the assets themselves, and also through a taxable mechanism that we have in place. And then we also have really an opportunistic fund style of investment for investors, where investors can participate in some of these really opportunistic scenarios we're seeing in the United States, mostly the distressed, the foreclosed, the bank-owned type of assets, where we really see some tremendous upside on some of these properties.
So this is one of the things I was going to talk, because we've seen the housing bubble as it crested through the U.S. We weren't impacted the same way here in Canada. We were quite fortunate, a different regulatory process as well. So there is opportunity for Canadians in the U.S. Is this something that the average Canadian citizen could get involved in, even though it is something that is outside of the country?
Well, it is, and I mean, there's a variety of mechanisms or methods for investors to do this. We focus primarily on a structured investment, a pooled investment with other investors, where investors are all participating in the same property or the same project. But investors can do it themselves, either going down and purchasing units on their own, or through a pooled or a structured type of investment like the opportunities that the Jaymor Group does.
Now, what are the advantages to doing something, say, with the Jaymor Group as opposed to, oh, hey, let's hop on a plane and go down and see what's what?
Well, you know, I'd like to think that we do things at a slightly different level than the average investor does. I mean, we're participating in acquiring properties pretty much en masse. So when I say a multifamily apartment property, the style of asset that we participate in is a gated garden-style walk-up type of property, where you have, you know, typically anywhere from 100 to 400 apartments spread out over a couple of buildings themselves, with a common garden area, a common amenity set like a pool or a clubhouse or a sports court. And we're going in and buying all of those and participating by really using the economies of scale that you get from owning multiple units and being able to spread out the costs over all of those. So I think that's one of the things that investors can't necessarily do on their own, unless they have really deep pockets, in which case they probably could. And in addition to that, I think one of the things that we really offer investors is the fact that all of our asset management and our property management is actually done on the ground in those markets where investors are purchasing the property. So we have people on the ground who know the local market, who have the connections, who have the experience and the background really to be able to participate and buy the best assets. And I would argue that those assets probably don't go out to the retail market, you know, because we've got those relationships and that history in place. We've been focusing on that sort of southeastern part of the Sun Belt for the last 22 years. So, you know, I think we've been able to leverage those relationships in a way that it would be very difficult for the average investor to walk in off the street and you know, buy the same quality of asset.
You know who's who in the zoo, basically.
Absolutely. I mean, that's definitely it, Dave. We're a familiar player in the market, and we've been there for a while. So, you know, we get our pick of deals, so to speak, before they kind of go out to the general public. So I think that's one of the competitive advantages that we definitely offer.
Luca, you talk about the multifamily market and that how Jaymor is involved in that. Tell us why. I mean, what are you looking at in terms of numbers and where we're heading?
Well, the things that we like right now specifically is really where rents are going and where occupancy rates have been heading. We've seen a tremendous shift in the United States over the last few years here away from home ownership and into multifamily. Some of that has to do with, obviously, the subprime market and foreclosures, people moving out of single-family homes and into apartments. So we've seen that trend work in our favor, primarily on the occupancy side of things. again, each 1% of home ownership rate change equals about 1.2 million new renters coming to the market. And we've dropped about 5% off of the high during the boom. And we've actually gotten to a point now where home ownership is at its lowest rate since 1965. So tremendous opportunity there. And we've seen it also in rents. As more people are moving into the rental market, rents have been trending upward and really providing us with some additional cash flow and opportunities to increase the value of these properties.
Luca Catrone with me from the Jaymor Group. Also in the studio with me, too, Corey Daly from Daly Financial Group. Corey, when you deal with a group like a Jaymor Group, we've heard Luca kind of talking about the experience and, the literally people on the ground in the locations. Is this the type of thing that, really appeals to you when you deal and relate with companies like this?
Sure. The average investor really doesn't have the ability to go out and buy these properties on their own, and if they do, certainly, good for them. But really, at the end of the day, the Jaymor Group provides investors with an opportunity to use cash or registered RSP money to go out and buy the same assets, participate in the bigger assets that they would otherwise not be eligible for.
And I did touch on it briefly with Luca. For an average Canadian citizen, it is possible to go south of the border and be part of an investment like this, even though you're a Canadian citizen, and different rules and regulations, obviously, in the U.S. markets. Right.
The majority of the issues become taxation and estate issues by owning property on your own. Certainly buying into a fund like the Jaymor Group funds eliminate those management issues, eliminate the taxation issues from the U.S. standpoint, and also the estate planning issues that come with owning foreign property.
Luca Catrone with me as well from the Jaymor Group. Luca, when you look at, the tough times that the U.S. and especially some portions of it have really gone through in the last little while, and I don't mean this in a bad way at all, but you almost must be rubbing your hands going, boy, there's some phenomenal opportunities out there.
Well, that's definitely the case. We've seen a variety of different opportunities come about where 3 years ago, or I guess prior to that, we really would never have kind of imagined this type of scenario occurring. After the bubble burst, the product that came to market for a variety of reasons was really tremendous for us. We saw things like broken condominium corporations, so where a developer may have come to the market trying to sell, multiple buildings, a few hundred units at a time on a new development, and then the market turned, and unfortunately the market rates for selling those units was no longer sustainable, and the developers go bankrupt. And, for us, from an opportunity standpoint, we've been able to pick up those at a tremendous discount over the replacement value. And I think that's the key thing really right now, is that there is still an opportunity to acquire assets in the U.S. below replacement value. And, from a simple supply and demand and economics perspective, that is unsustainable. I mean, at some point, if it costs more to build new buildings, the existing buildings that are being sold at less than that value have to get snapped up. So, we think this is a once-in-a-lifetime window to really participate in properties where we see an obvious opportunity for upside.
And how many times, and we've all kicked ourselves when, we've bought, I bought right at the peak of the market. This is one of those potential rare opportunities where you're buying in a trough. There is the potential there that, I'm trying to remember the last time I would have seen this in North America in my lifetime, and I can't.
You're right on the money. We've got an opportunity now where, again, we're buying these things at a historical discount, and obviously, we don't know where we are in the economic cycle. We could go sideways for a few years. We could go down a little bit more. We could go a little bit back up soon. We don't know where that is, but we definitely know that we're not buying at the peak, right? We've seen where that is. We're well off of that. In most cases, we're typically anywhere from 20 to 35% off, even today after we've seen some recovery in those markets. There is an opportunity for us today that I don't know whether that's an opportunity that, we'll see again anytime soon.
Luca, thanks for joining us. Appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. I appreciate being on the show.
Luca Catrone from the Jaymor Group joining us from south of the border. This is Dave Arnold. You've been listening to News Talk 980 CJME. Talk to the expert. 980 CJME.